Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Gilda Evans, bringing you the Autism Resource Podcast. This podcast and the ARP website are your one stop knowledge and resource space for autism and much more. I'm happy to have Lynda Farrington Wilson join me as my guest today. Lynda has spent her life creating. Art, pottery, and writing have always been at the heart of who she is, ultimately serving as a vice president of marketing in the skincare industry. When her youngest son was diagnosed with autism at age 2, she shifted her focus to supporting him and published her first book, Squirmy Wormy: How I Learned to Help Myself, igniting a new chapter of advocacy and creativity. Lynda has illustrated over 120 children's books and authored 3 additional titles. Her most recent is titled Splish, Splash, Squawk: Finding Joy in a Sensory-Friendly Vacation, a children's book designed to encourage families with children on the autism spectrum to embrace the joys of travel. Welcome, Lynda, and thanks so much for taking the time to join me and discuss the work that you do.
Thank you so much, Gilda, for having me.
So, to start us off, can you please share a bit about your personal journey as a mom of a son with autism and how that experience ultimately inspired you to write and illustrate stories like Splish, Splash, Walk?
I'd love to share. I have a son named Tyler, and he has autism. He was diagnosed at 2 years of age, and he's going to be 26 years old in another month. So the first book that I created, Squirmy Wormy, was when he was 5 years old, and it was helping address sensory issues. And it was in my quest to understand his sensory issues and what could I do for him to help him through those things. That was before iPads were available. That was before a lot of information was in your hands. So I would question things like, why does he watch the ceiling fan spin round and round? And why does he need so much physical input to process? And a lot of professionals I asked didn't have the answer. They would just say, because he has autism. And I used to call it the autism black hole. Like everything goes into that black hole, but I want to understand more. And so that book was written to talk about, if you're watching the ceiling fan spin, maybe what you need to do is to go on a merry-go-round in the playground and spin. And I took like very common autism traits and figured out socially acceptable replacements for some of those things.
All right, that makes a lot of sense, actually. So tell me how you translated your observations into your creative process and how you approach storytelling.
I think I approach storytelling very simplistic. Obviously, the audience that I've written for needs simplification, but I also wanted these books to be read over and over again. And there's always some fun, repetitive sounds or repetitive words that may keep the reader engaged, just like a favorite bedtime story that you could read over and over again and not get tired of it is what I try to do in my writing. And then I'm an illustrator, so I love lots of color, lots of engaging graphics, little hidden things that you may not see on your first couple page turns, but details that, would want the reader to be read to or to read themselves over and over again.
So, your most recent book, Splish, Splash, Squawk, how did that come about? And what does it mean to you to see a destination invest in autism friendly travel initiatives?
I think it's amazing the types of things that Myrtle Beach has focused on. We vacation with our son Tyler often. It's the first comfort place that we've had with Tyler. And it was so interesting that I was contacted by Myrtle Beach to write and illustrate this book because we have vacationed with Tyler to Myrtle Beach every year for 24 years. since
Wow.
he was 2 years old. And I learned a lot about what didn't work with us in vacationing with a child with special needs. And over many years of vacationing, started to figure out what worked for us and how can we have a fun vacation, but it be Tyler centric around what his needs are to be comfortable. And so it was just interesting that Myrtle Beach had contacted me about writing a book. They had not known I'd vacationed in Myrtle Beach for 23 straight years when they contacted me to do this book. And it was just one of those planets align opportunities to write this book.
Are there other autism friendly destinations that you've enjoyed and experienced with your family as well, or that you're aware of?
We have vacationed with Tyler in other areas, but I've never come across a city that is autism friendly.
All right, interesting. Because I understand that there are some others out there that tout themselves as being sensory friendly, autism friendly, but I think it's just a wonderful example for cities and destinations to follow to include this enormous population, right?
Yes, it is.
And
It is, and
welcome.
growing by the day, unfortunately,
That's
growing by the
yeah.
day. But there's a comfort as an autism parent to be someplace that's not judging.
Would
To walk
agree.
into
Yeah.
a restaurant, and even if Tyler's having a challenging moment, they get it. And there's
Yes.
a great comfort in that. When you're on vacation, you want to let your guard down, right? You're there to just like de-stress. And having a community that supports our kiddos on a vacation is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, from your perspective, what are a few practical tips you would share with families who might be feeling overwhelmed about traveling with a child on the autism spectrum?
I can tell you from a mama perspective what has worked for us. Again, honing this over 20-year period of our vacationing. Tyler likes to have the same vacation. We realized he likes to stay in the same condo we rent. He likes the same restaurants. We literally have discovered that we need to replicate that vacation for him, which often is just a 3-night vacation, but we replicate it. We go to the same restaurant when we arrive. We go to the same dinner show that brings him joy, makes him laugh. We basically have the same schedule. So there's no anxiety when he arrives of what am I going to see or where am I going to sleep or are they going to have my chicken nuggets at the wonderful crab buffet? There's nothing, there's no worries. There's no anxiety associated with these vacations anymore. And when he was younger, there was anxiety. There was anxiety that my husband and I had traveling with Tyler. There was anxiety of not having the right food there, or do I really want to get on this elevator? We experienced many a meltdown in the early days until we could figure out how to get this right. And so those strategies that worked for our family are many of the strategies that are in Splish Splash Squawk book. So simple things to offer to families like eating in an unfamiliar restaurant. It's so easy to just print those menus before you even go to the restaurant and circle it, review it with your loved one that yes, your favorite food will be there. Maybe the pools at a resort community are too noisy and overloading. And maybe that individual would be more comfortable on a lazy river, just floating in a tube. Noisy arcades. You go to a boardwalk, it's so fun to go into an arcade, but it can become so overwhelming very quickly with the lights and sounds. Myrtle Beach happens to have sensory hours for their arcades where there's not so many noises and it's the least crowded time of the day. So, what seemingly little things like that can make all the difference of a successful or unsuccessful vacation.
So then, from an overall perspective, why do you think sensory-friendly tourism is becoming more important in today's world. And what do you hope that families take away from resources like your book and sensory-friendly programs?
Well, the autism population is growing by leaps and bounds. So there's a need there as well. But I also think it's about inclusion. In a sensory friendly city like Myrtle Beach, that everyone is included. I think in some of their marketing strategies, they call it for every body. And like I said earlier, it's great comfort for parents, grandparents, to not have that angst of if your child is loud or they're having a challenging moment, that all eyes are on you and maybe they're going to ask us to leave this restaurant. That's happened to me before in Tyler's early days, but I don't feel that angst when I'm vacationing in Myrtle Beach or where I'm in a situation where our special needs population is embraced.
Okay, so is there anything then, Lynda, at this point that I haven't asked you that you would like to mention?
I think it's important for families to have the resources like this book that would help them feel encouraged to go on vacation. I know as a autism mom, in the early days, it was hard to go out. And I have lots of families that do not go on vacation because they're anxious about what might happen or they think they can't do it. And I think we all need that respite. And as a situation with our family, we had no other respite for Tyler. We wanted him to come to every venue we went to, and we all needed it because that may be your only respite is with your child. And so I'm happy that Myrtle Beach thought of creating a book like this that would help other families have the courage to try it and to get out there and do it. Because these are memories that you and your special individual will carry for the rest of their lives. This is to create some normalcy in what isn't necessarily feeling normal.
Thank you so much, Lynda, for your time and for sharing your story with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I appreciate all that you do for our special community.
Thank you so much. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast. You can find it on Apple iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, and other popular platforms. We'd appreciate you taking the time to leave us a review. You can also listen to the podcast on YouTube at ARP Social, where you'll find bonus content. And be sure to follow us on Facebook or Instagram to get up-to-date notifications about the latest news and episodes. If you would like more information on anything else we've covered on the Autism Resource Podcast, visit us online at autismresourceproject.org/podcast. Be sure to check out our growing website often, since we are continually adding useful information and resources. I want to thank our listeners for spending part of their day with us. This is the Autism Resource Podcast, and I'm Gilda Evans, reminding you to take care of yourself and that special person in your life.